Hello everyone, I am Chief Track Analyst Milky Cyril and welcome to another one of our Formula X racing track guides. We're heading into the Hungaroring Magyar Negidij, if I remember correctly, and Lars Algera was kind enough to send us a hot lap, and we're going to be diving right on in and breaking down the lap and seeing where you can find more time here in Hungary. So without any further ado, let's head right on in. So to start our lap, we're going to use up all of the track on corner exit, keeping our car all the way to the left-hand side as we get ready to jump on the brakes for turn 1. And as you can see, we're down into 7th at this point, and that's because we just started getting onto the brakes just before the 50-meter board. I personally just use the reference point as this bit here. That's kind of where you want to be making sure that you're braking. There's a couple of different lines you can use into turn 1. You can either brake in a straight line up like this, or you can brake in a diagonal line towards the apex, and we'll see which Lars Algera goes with. He's on the brakes, and it's kind of in the middle of turning. He's down into 3rd gear, and you're going to be wanting to get down to 2nd gear. You can see how close we're getting to the apex. You don't really want to get on the curb. It unsettles the car. Sometimes you can get your front right wheel all the way up here if you find that you're braking a bit too early, but this is pretty much a bang on perfect from Lars. Back on the power, short shifting, we're up to 4th, and you can see that we don't touch this curb on the left. That unsettles the car. No matter what you do here at Hungary, do not use this curb on a corner exit. You do not gain time. Pull the car all the way over to the right-hand side of the track on the run down towards turn 2, and you can do a few things here. You can use this little extra bit of track on the right-hand side of the circuit. It doesn't harm the car. It doesn't really affect your braking. So personally, I recommend that you try to do this, especially when you are trying to maximize a hot lap. And you're braking really late. You're braking around 40 meters, trail braking all the way down. We're into 2nd gear, and you can see our steering angle 90 degrees here, getting as close to this curb as we can. And now we're going to start opening up the steering, using up all of the track. Again, we're all the way over to the right, and it's going to be flat out through this right-hander. Using up all of the curb, and pretty much using up all of the curb on exit. Sometimes the back end does step out. Now this is one of the trickiest corners around. You want to be making sure that your car's all the way over this curb, and you can see that Lars Algera is doing just that as we're going to fling it in. So we're currently in 8th gear. We can drop it down to 7th. Sometimes you can keep it in 8th if you're feeling really brave. 7th gear. And actually, I just want to go back a bit just to highlight how much curb we use going into this corner. And there you go. We're right over this curb. And on corner exit, again, we're using the curb on exit. Don't have to use it too much. Again, this is another easy corner to lose a rear end and spin, but you have to have bravery here. Pull the car all the way back over to the left. You can see that we're pretty much touching the white line, having already turned in, and make sure to stay away from this curb on the apex. I personally recommend taking this corner in 4th gear. It means that you can get on the power nice and early, maybe even short shift up to 5th if you're still struggling a bit with the traction, which can happen. We're in 5th now, and you can see using up all of the curb on exit. You guys have probably got a little bit bored of me consistently saying use up all of the curb, but it is so important to do that on this game. You can get away with abusing the curbs in so many places, and it's very important to understand which curbs you can use and which curbs you can't use, and that's why I keep on going on about it like a broken record player. Now this is actually weirdly possibly my favorite corner on the circuit, this chicane, because I'm actually decent at it. But no, you can brake really late for this, and you want to be braking at about 50 meters, dropping it down into 2nd gear, and then you short shift up to 3rd or 4th. So you can see we're right over the curb, back on the power, and 4th gear, we're going to go over this curve. You don't want to be running over this, but then again, I haven't really experimented with this little raised curb, so give it a shot, see if it works. We go over it a bit, but the critical thing is that on corner exit, you are right over this curb, because that means that you've opened up the steering as much as you can through the chicane, and you're getting back onto the power as early as possible. Quick downshift, down into 5th, and then 4th as well. Get on the curb, pull it over to the left. Now, I've spoken to different people, and different people say different things about this chicane. Some people will tell you to use the curbs. Other people will say don't use the curbs. So my advice to all of you is to try both methods, see which one works better. I personally think, from what I've experimented with in the past, if you stay away from the curbs, you can carry more speed, but you have to have more bravery to carry that speed. So if you just want to be able to do something somewhat consistently, I would say use the curb, as it's easier to get right most of the time, whereas not taking the curb requires you just to have that bit more bravery on the power. You can see that we're using up all of the track on exit. Pull the car a little bit to the right, completely flat through the left, and now set yourself up for this corner. One downshift is all that's necessary. Sometimes you don't even need to downshift, and it all comes down to how brave you are. Again, make sure not to get a track invalidation through this right-hander. Possibly the easiest part of the circuit to do that, aside from the uphill left-hander at the end of sector 1. And now, braking. Again, you want to be braking just before this curbing starts on the left-hand side of the circuit. You drop it into third gear, and this is one of the easiest places to gain time. You want to be making sure that you get your wheel right up onto this curb. Nice and early turn in. Lars does that. Short shift up into a fourth. Use up all of the track on exit. We're actually up to fifth, and now we're just going to slam the throttle down. Nice late braking, trail braking. Get the car right hooked up to the apex, and then back on the power again, short shifting to minimize wheel spin. You can see we're using that pit entry road and now pulling our car back over to the left. I personally think we get this corner wrong. I think Lars has pulled his car over to the left a little bit too late, which means he can't have a nice diagonal run, because you don't want to be braking into a straight line and then turning into this corner. You want to be aiming your car, braking diagonally, getting it parked essentially in the middle, and then carrying the speed through. Either way, we get a nice run back on the power as early as you dare. Short shift to minimize wheel spin. Use all of the track to complete your lap here at Hungary. And as I mentioned during the video, Hungaroring, there's a lot of corners, there's a lot of curbs that you can abuse. You can really use up as much of the curb as is possible, but there are other places where you do have those auto spin curves. The bravery is so important at Hungary, and just having the confidence in the car, being able to use up those curbs, go to the absolute limit, is what's going to differentiate, the good drivers from the weak drivers. We've talked about different tracks, some tracks where you have to be able to abuse track limits, others where you have to be able to be good on the traction. I think in terms of the tracks that we've seen so far this season, I would like at Hungary possibly the most with Australia, because you've got a few high-speed corners like Australia, but the majority of it is being good with traction, being able to be late on the brakes, down into corners, and getting those lines absolutely spot on. Strategy is quite interesting at Hungary as well. The best strategy is going from the mediums onto the hards. So those drivers who make it onto Q3 and the soft tyres might be finding themselves at a little bit of a disadvantage. Very similar to France in that regards, but maybe a little bit less punishing is a tyre strategy at Hungary if you are starting on those soft tyres. Either way, expect the top drivers to be trying to make it into Q3 on a set of mediums, and those who don't make it into Q3 potentially even starting on the hard tyres. But that's been the Hungary track guide. Make sure to tune in Thursday evening for Division 1 and Division 2, and on Friday evening 6:30 will be the start of the Premier X show. We hope to see you there.